3 people sat down for a family lunch. Within 48 hours, all 3 were dead. The woman who cooked the meal claimed she had no idea the mushrooms were poisonous. But here's what prosecutors discovered: this wasn't her first attempt. And the evidence they found in her search history will make your blood run cold. On July 29, 2023, Erin Patterson invited her former in-laws to her home in Leongatha, a small town in rural Victoria, Australia. The guests were Gail and Don Patterson, both in their 70s, and Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson along with her husband Ian. Erin served them beef Wellington, a pastry-wrapped dish featuring mushrooms she claimed to have bought from an Asian grocery store. Within hours, all 4 guests were violently ill. But here's the question that would haunt investigators for the next 16 months: if Erin cooked the meal and ate the same food, why was she the only person at that table who didn't get sick? The answer to that question would reveal a killer hiding in plain sight. The timeline of death was horrific. Gail Patterson died first, just 3 days after the lunch. Her husband Don followed the next day. Heather Wilkinson survived initially but died 5 days later after a failed liver transplant. Only Ian Wilkinson survived, spending weeks in a medically induced coma. But what killed them wasn't ordinary food poisoning. Toxicology reports revealed the presence of amatoxin, a deadly compound found in death cap mushrooms. Here's what makes these mushrooms so terrifying: victims often feel better after the initial symptoms pass. They think they're recovering. But inside their bodies, the toxin is quietly destroying their liver and kidneys. By the time the second wave of symptoms hits, it's usually too late. And investigators would soon discover something even more disturbing about Erin's past. Now let me tell you something that changes everything about this case. This wasn't the first time Erin Patterson's husband had been poisoned by mushrooms. In 2015, her then-husband Simon Patterson was hospitalized after eating mushrooms Erin had prepared. He survived, but the marriage didn't. They separated, and Erin kept the house. The same house where she would later host the deadly lunch for Simon's parents. Coincidence? Prosecutors don't think so. They believe Erin had been planning this for years. She wanted revenge on the Patterson family. She blamed them for her failed marriage. And she found the perfect murder weapon growing wild in the Australian bush. But here's where the investigation took its darkest turn. Police discovered that Erin had searched online for death cap mushrooms months before the lunch. But that's not even the most damning evidence against Erin Patterson. Stop and think about what happened in the hours after that lunch. While her guests were vomiting and experiencing liver failure, Erin was busy. Very busy. She went to the local tip and disposed of a food dehydrator. She texted the victims saying she hoped they felt better soon. And she gave multiple conflicting statements to police about where she bought the mushrooms. First, she said they came from an Asian grocery in Melbourne. Then she said she couldn't remember. Then she claimed she bought dried mushrooms that she rehydrated. Each story contradicted the last. But here's what really trapped her. A neighbor had security camera footage showing Erin leaving her property the day after the lunch with items she took to the dump. Those items would become the key to proving premeditation. The motive prosecutors presented was devastating in its simplicity. Erin Patterson hated her in-laws. She blamed Gail and Don Patterson for poisoning her marriage. Court documents revealed that Erin believed her in-laws had influenced Simon to leave her. She was bitter about the divorce. She was angry about custody arrangements for their children. And she had already tried to kill Simon once before, back in 2015. When that failed, she targeted his parents instead. Heather and Ian Wilkinson were simply collateral damage, guests who happened to be at the wrong lunch. But Erin didn't care. She served them all the same deadly mushrooms and watched them eat. Then she sat back and waited for them to die. Investigators believe she deliberately ate a small, non-lethal portion herself to create an alibi. I want you to really understand what kind of death these people suffered. Death cap mushrooms contain amatoxin, which attacks the liver with surgical precision. Victims experience violent vomiting and diarrhea within 6 to 12 hours. Then comes the cruel trick, a false recovery period where patients feel better. Doctors call this the honeymoon phase. But inside, the liver is dying. Within 3 to 5 days, total liver failure sets in. The only hope is an emergency transplant, but organs are rarely available in time. Gail Patterson was 70 years old. Dawn was 72. Heather Wilkinson was 66. None of them stood a chance. And the woman who served them this poison sat in her home, checking her phone, waiting for the news that her plan had worked. In November 2024, after 16 months of investigation, Erin Patterson was charged with 3 counts of murder and 5 counts of attempted murder. She pleaded not guilty. Her defense attorney argued she had no idea the mushrooms were poisonous, that she was a victim of circumstance, a grieving woman who accidentally served toxic food to people she cared about. But prosecutors dismantled every excuse. They presented her internet search history. They showed the jury the food dehydrator she tried to destroy. They played her contradictory police interviews. And they reminded the court about Simon Patterson, the husband who nearly died from mushroom poisoning years earlier. The same husband whose parents were now dead. Erin Patterson didn't make a mistake. She committed the perfect murder, or so she thought. The answer to why she didn't get sick was simple: she knew exactly what she was serving, and she made sure her portion was safe. As of early 2025, Erin Patterson's trial continues. She remains in custody, denied bail as a flight risk. Ian Wilkinson, the sole survivor, has become the prosecution's star witness, providing testimony about the lunch, the symptoms, and the aftermath that nearly killed him. The Patterson family, already shattered by grief, now faces the additional trauma of a public trial. 3 people are dead because one woman couldn't let go of her bitterness. One woman who smiled at family gatherings while planning mass murder. One woman who used the intimacy of a home-cooked meal as a weapon. The case has shocked Australia and raised uncomfortable questions about the people we trust most. Because the truth is, death-cap mushrooms don't find their way onto dinner plates by accident. Someone has to pick them. Someone has to cook them. And someone has to serve them to people who trust them with their lives. 3 lives ended at a family lunch table, and 1 woman sits in a jail cell claiming innocence. If you want to see more cases of killers hiding behind trusted relationships, subscribe now and hit the bell. And tell me in the comments, do you believe Erin Patterson's claim that this was all a tragic accident? Or do the facts speak for themselves?